back from the top. Welcome to Arakko Public Radio, your weekly dose of X-Men comic chat. I'm Rod. This is my co-host Keegan. This week we are talking Axe, Death to Mutants number 1, X-Men number 13, X-Force number 30, and New Mutants number 28, just a little bit. Before we get into it though, I'm putting you on the spot. What is your favorite mutant team that isn't the X-Men?
Okay, my favorite mutant team that isn't the X-Men. So mine's actually it's a bit newer. Mine is X Factor from the Leah Williams run that wrapped up
Okay.
just like last year, I want to say.
So the Krakoan
Yeah, like
X Factor.
Krakoa and X Factor. I personally really thought that it was cool that it was almost like a mutant CSI kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I've been telling one of my friends that reads comics, like, if I were to have the ability to make like any show for like Disney, it would be like a crime procedural drama of X Factor for Disney Plus.
So same lineup,
Mm-hmm.
like the Krakoan lineup as a TV show. I would love
Yeah.
that. Okay, great answer. Question for you. We might have hit on this. Does that team still exist? Like we never saw the team disband, right?
Right. Well, they kind of have like gone their separate ways because like Daken is doing his own thing now.
That's fair. He got moved to Marauders.
Yeah, I think everybody got moved around.
We haven't seen North Star at all, right? We don't know
like,
what he's doing now.
Yeah, I have no idea where North Star is actually.
Okay.
But yeah, like they've kind of got spread to the wind. And I don't know what's going on, but it really bumped me out when that one ended because it was one of my favorite books.
I don't blame you. And then they got the kind of, I don't know your thoughts on it, they got the kind of crummy epilogue in the horribly paced Trial of Magneto. Like that plot, that had so much potential and then kind of fizzled.
That I was so excited for Trial of Magneto, and like I enjoyed like overall what it did, but it could have used a lot better pacing. Absolutely.
Well, and coming out concurrently with Inferno hurt it too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What about yours?
Oh, I forgot. Actually, ironically, also an X Factor team, but the original X Factor Investigations, the multiple man and all that. I just love that whole lineup. I have Death to Mutants and then X-Men. They run concurrently. They kind of overlap. Do you think that's the better order, or do you want to flip that?
I'm good with going Death to Mutants. That's what I read first this week, anyways. So
okay. I'll real quick summarize it then. First off, super weird name because it was basically just a bonus arc of the Eternals, but it runs parallel, like we said, with Judgment Day number 2 and X-Men 13. Opens with the blue narration, which is so warm and loving after last week's revelations about the pink narration. Starts with a recap of Judgment Day number 1, and then the good Eternals. So with Icarus, Cersei, Thena, Kingo, and Sprite are all in Lemuria plotting. Phastos and Ajax fight over bringing the new Celestial to life and whether Ajax could have prevented the entire war. Then they go spelunking in a bit to confront the ghosts of the progenitor's victims. The Crow, the Deviant's leader, facilitates it. Gets some great burns in on Icarus, and then we see them launch the sneak attack on Olympia, hoping to cut off Droog's siege. We see a psychic battle between the Unimind and the Omega Mutants from the Eternal side. We saw the other side of the conflict over in Judgment Day, and basically confirming that it's a war of attrition for the Eternals. The exiled Eternals break through enough to give the X-Men access to the armory, and Icarus takes down Zuros, which ends the psychic battle. Phastos finishes the new Celestial, and we see its declaration from the Eternals' perspective. The issue closes with Icarus leaving a message for Droog seared into the wall. Death to the Eternals. All right. Thoughts?
I thought, first of all, I really enjoyed it. I thought this was great, despite, weird name, but very fun.
Well, and you didn't read Eternals, right? So you have a unique perspective.
Yeah, I hadn't really read Eternals, so I was just coming on it mostly from a, like, Judgment Day and the prelude, the Eve to Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Like, that was really most of my information on it, I guess. So coming into it, I have a general knowledge of who the Eternals are and which characters are which, but
Sure.
I'm forming more opinions as I go reading this issue. So I had my moments of like, oh, okay, so like Crow's my boy. I love
Yeah,
Crow.
which is completely Kieran Gillen's like doing. He created. I think Crow existed. He made Crow who Crow is. Like
Mhm.
although he stepped it up this issue. Like we always hit on what line of the issues. What was the line of the issue for me? Crow is our MVP. When he delivered, "This is where we learned," with full certainty that our gods do not love us, was just like the gut punch of gut punches.
Yeah, that one was incredible. That whole
Whole monologue.
section of that monologue of Crow just doing his thing, and also just like calling out who was he calling out? Icarus, I want to say.
He
Uh,
burns Icarus a few times.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was burning Icarus pretty bad, and I thought that was fantastic. I
Well,
really enjoyed that.
well, he points out that like, oh, what are you gonna do? You're gonna run off and be the heroes, and who's gonna be left with everything else? Us. Which, yeah, the deviants get left with everything. But then why don't you why don't you use some critical thinking for once? However he phrases it. Great line again. Just yeah, great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things I really loved. But then for me personally, the line of the issue, right, as you were saying, was the blue narration, the machine talking about Cersei and Cersei's thoughts in that moment, and the thoughts of why would we make another god like that, and how could we not try to make a better one?
Yeah,
And
that was
that
beautiful.
really hit. I was like, that's good. I think, especially because, like, I think I've mentioned I'm someone that grew up like in a very religious environment and like have a lot of trauma dealing with that. That particularly hit home. I was like, oh, damn, I get it. Okay, Cersei.
Well, it's the kind of thing where you have to wonder, like, why is Kieran Gillen writing like comic books and not giant tomes on philosophy? Because he's dropping nuggets like that.
All the time.
I will say the machine not only pointing in that direction though. I did love the video game reference. He was talking about the war of attrition and comparing the role of the Eternals versus the role of the X-Men psychics to JRPGs, with that the X-Men could deal more damage, but the Eternals have more hit points.
Yeah,
I thought
that was good.
that was really fun.
Yeah. I thought that was a very good way to kind of break it down because in a way they are both immortal at this point, just
Yep.
in different ways.
But like we saw last week, and it seems to be drilling home, and with Judgment coming down, I don't know how much this plays into it, but we've seen the Eternals can do it a hell of a lot faster and a hell of a lot easier. I mean, you just
Yes.
instantly kill a human and you got a new Eternal, whereas the five take a while.
Yeah, not only that, but the Eternal remembers the battle,
Yep,
and the mutant
that's true.
theoretically does not.
That I couldn't remember which issue we learned that in because we had so many issues that cover the same territory. But you're right. We learned this week that they did recognize that that was an advantage. They
Mhm.
remember that the mutants don't.
Yeah, the Mumatar did, and Exodus didn't.
Yep,
Yeah.
that was really cool. Uh, so let's talk about the end. So Droog is definitely going to be handing leadership of the Eternals back to Uranos now at this
Hmm.
point. How many issues do we think it's going to be? Is that going to be like the issue 5 ramp up, or do we think that's happening right away?
That's a good question. I think they got to ramp up to it, right?
Yeah.
I think you can't. I think you can't do X-Men Red the way you did it and then immediately bring Uranos back. You have to let that settle.
Marinate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Droog has to try to weasel, like, he has to try to prove he can hold on, and then we get confirmation he can't. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I think he's too calculating to do it immediately.
Uh, so Droog refers to the seven, yeah, Eternals as the Forgotten. I always just, I think we've only seen them referred to as like the Exiles at this point. I think this is the first time they're labeled the Forgotten. I like that name. If it has already been dropped, I'm sorry, but if that I like it. I think the Forgotten is a great name for that team, and I think they should keep the name.
I think so too. I really like the Forgotten name. Uh, it just sounds cool. It just
Yeah.
sounds super cool to me.
Well, and it sounds like a superhero team after the fact. Like if this event ends and like those seven stay together, and like if the Eternals 2 movie, they could take that name. Like they just run with the Forgotten.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
So do we want to talk about the flip on the name of the book that the book's called Death to Mutants, but the
Yeah.
signal that we get seared into the wall is Death to the Eternals.
Yeah, I thought that was a good flip. I liked that. Yeah.
Well, it really, to me, like between seeing this and then we're gonna talk about X Men 13, but seeing Icarus's further motivations, like I really don't know how far he's gonna go to like end the Eternal line at this point.
Yeah, it's all very interesting to me because of how much I don't know about the Eternals. I feel like I'm learning a lot as I go, and so kind of seeing these motivations play out, I'm just like, oh shit, oh
Well,
okay. What?
and I will say, like, they've evolved a lot in just the last couple of years. Like, Kieran Gillen has already very much made them his own beast. Like, the whole "a human has to die" thing is completely Kieran Gillen's creation. So, a lot of cool pieces being moved here, and I'm really hoping when this event is over that Gillen somehow continues what he's doing. Like, I'm hoping this isn't an end for his relationship with the Eternals. And X-Men 13. Again, this one's taking place during Judgment Day #2, and the last issue we just talked about. It opens with the new X-Men team. We just got a Hellfire Gala fighting the Hex, except for Forge. Cyclops chastises him for taking his time, so he whips out this big Krakoan tech gun meat. I guess it's not technically meat. It looks like it's like fleshy, but everything on Krakoa is like plant based, right? So, oh, whatever. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. uh, the gun covers the Hex in nanites. When asked about reloading, he makes a quip that, oh, he's working on it. Like, oh, nanites don't grow on trees kind of thing. Jean and Icarus have a psychic meeting where they work out the plan we saw half of in Death to the Mutants before Jean leaves to prepare. Icarus warns they are to kill no Eternal, but stops short of explaining why. Then we see the X-Men fighting the Hex some more. We get a remix of the scene in Death to the Mutants where Icarus gets them into the armory. They're met by heavy defenses, which gives us a really cool chance to kind of see the new team in action. Sync and Iceman team up to freeze out the equipment, and Ileana uses a portal through Limbo to take them home. Then we get the Celestials' 24-hour proclamation from their viewpoint. Uh, I thought this was a passable issue. It very much this was the first tie-in that I would say felt like an actual like tie-in to me. I
Okay.
I enjoyed seeing the team in action. I think I would have rather seen a first escapade of the team that maybe wasn't just a recap or an expansion of stuff we already saw. But what were your thoughts?
So I think that my favorite part was also seeing the team in action. I thought it was cool seeing how all of their powers were like working together and
Absolutely.
everything. I thought that was cool because it was like it's always that thing when they first show the new team. I'm kind of like, okay, what kind of crazy stuff are they going to end up doing?
Well, I thought Dugan did a really good job of that last year. Like that,
Yes.
the first issue with the last team after the last Hellfire Gala was a really cool battle in New York that I feel like this didn't quite match the energy of. But maybe I'm just being nitpicky because I've been so into the last few tie-ins. I don't know.
I mean that it has a lot to stand up to. Like
Yeah.
that's part of it for sure. There was a lot of the action that I did really enjoy. Iceman going like full kaiju
Full
fist
kaiju?
fight.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
The full kaiju fist fight of it all, like that was super fun. I was super excited about that. Also, like I don't know what it is about Forge.
Mm,
Forge scratches a very specific something in my brain.
yeah.
Like I think it's just like the history of characters I was obsessed with as a child. He is of that variety.
Well, notice I spent a lot of time in my recap on those first few pages because I felt like that had the most like character and energy. Like I loved the back and forth with Cyclops and Forge.
Yeah, I thought that was really great. Their back and forth was fantastic. The actual fight was fun. Like I
Uh,
really enjoyed like the portals through Limbo.
on the topic of Forge, I didn't love. There was a joke at the end when the Celestial made his comment where Forge made like a joke about like, oh, good, I was worried it was gonna be a peyote flashback.
Mm-hmm.
That felt. I don't know if I love that joke. Like I know it's
Yeah,
really nitpicky to be like that joke didn't land for me, but I can't put my finger on why I find it kind of offensive. But it kind of bugged me.
I I know what you mean because like when I read it, I had this moment of like huh, is that what we want to go with? You know,
Yeah.
like, I mean, because like part of me likes the characterization of him just being kind of, did you guys see this too? Oh man, that was crazy. I thought it was just me. I think because like peyote can be so closely tied to like religious experiences of certain groups
That
and
might be why it's
stuff.
feeling that maybe that's why it's feeling icky to me. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think the joke could have landed a lot better if it was like mushrooms, acid,
Yep.
some other psychedelic, that kind of thing.
Well, and I'm wondering if like they didn't go like acid because it's still technically PG. Although peyote is not like a
It's
super
not
culturally acceptable drug. I don't know. I don't know
the
what to do with that joke.
yeah, I just you know, I see what they're trying to do there. I appreciate the bones of the joke, but the execution didn't it gave me a little ick.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one. But overall, I'm all for Forge on the team. Like I think he was a highlight of the new members, and it
Mhm.
sounds like same for you. Uh, what about Firestar? What are we feeling Firestar on the team?
What are we feeling? Uh I mean, I always like having a good, blaster of some kind on the team.
Yeah. Which I have a
Obviously.
little nitpick with. I'm pretty sure her power's always been portrayed as like almost like radiation or like microwaves. Like I don't
That's
think
a
I've
good
ever
point.
I don't think I've ever seen it portrayed as flames, which
Yeah.
we got like very specific flames, which is whatever. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe at some point we've seen it like that, but it threw me off in the issue.
Yeah, I don't think I noticed that actually upon reading it. I was just kind of I liked the whole fire and ice of it all.
Yeah,
Um
that is a beautiful. Yeah, I feel you there.
and maybe that's why they chose to show the powers that way. It's just because it
Which
is
is
so
fair.
classic. And I
Which
get
is
that. Honestly, the fire star of it all for me was the data page.
yes, the data page was awesome. The Bart Jones, which I had not seen like his name in a while, maybe in like a tie-in or a side book I haven't been reading, but that was really cool to bring back in Dad.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Like,
Well, and
like
that didn't even click for me in the Hellfire Gala when Emma was the one that like suggested Firestar. Didn't even dawn like I didn't even think about their history. And now thinking about like yeah, she wanted to make an assassin out of her.
that same thing happened to me. Like during the gala and all that, it just right over my head. And then
Yeah.
the second this data page pops up and I'm like starting to kind of process the names and like what it's actually saying, I was like, oh.
Well, Dugan is the king of data pages for me forever because remember his data page is the one that canonized soft serve. If
That's right.
Dugan had not made the reference in a data page, soft serve still wouldn't be a canon character.
Yeah.
The X-Men who poops ice cream. Back to Firestar though. Uh, what about the like dialogue we've seen from her so far? Because to me, it felt like we were getting her as the token. Everything's going to be an Avengers reference, and that felt really weird to me. Like, why is she
Yeah.
talking about like Captain America as a leader? That was
Yeah,
that was
that
awkward.
that was definitely weird. Like Firestar's dialogue to me was weird enough that it almost didn't stand out. Like it was almost like I don't want to say white noise on the page, but it
Ah,
almost felt like white noise on the
you're
page.
putting word, yeah, you're putting a label on it. I wouldn't have come up with the words for, but it's totally what it felt like. Like if I was in a hurry and was skimming, like that would have been something I would have hoped I had skipped. Like it just didn't feel any weight to it. Anything she said.
It's the MCU kind of like all very quippy and like remember if you've watched this thing, like that's how it
Yep.
felt to me.
Which I hope isn't the direction Dugan is going, because a lot of his Deadpool runs started to feel like that for me, and I'm hoping like this lineup of X-Men isn't gonna feel more like that because he did a lot of really good things with his last lineup. And as amazing as Immortal and Red are, and as much as they are the flagship books, I feel like the book called X-Men should be a standalone. Like it should feel like a flagship title.
Yeah, I mean, like
This
X-Men
issue
is the
didn't feel like that
one,
for me.
like X-Men's the one that you should be able to read without reading every other
Anything else?
Krakoa book.
Absolutely. Yes, very true.
Like, if you want to read all of Krakoa, you can. If you want to just read X-Men, you can. That's the way that it should be.
And I don't think as of now it feels like that's the case, but we are in the middle of a crossover, so maybe we'll see at the end of the crossover it'll be more standalone. I assume it's where we're going to see fallout of uh, the Sinister clone. I can't think of his name, but
Yeah. Now I'm doing a really fast looking through the
yeah.
issue
What are you
because
seeing?
okay, this is a disappointing piece of information because you're saying a lot of her dialogue was about the Avengers.
Yeah.
She did not have a single line of dialogue that did not reference the Avengers.
Not surprising to me. That's
Like, I was going through. I was like, I want to see like what's the ratio. 100%
Ron's exaggerating on me.
references.
Oh, no, he's not. No, he's not.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
see. Sure
Yeah.
enough, every single line. That's a bummer.
I mean, we have one issue as a sample size. Let's maybe in a month we'll be able to say he's got our characterization down. But
Mm-hmm.
speaking of fire and ice, I I have a few things I want to ask about Sync and him taking Iceman's powers. First off, what are the rule of Omega mutants? Because we've established Sync isn't an Omega mutant, but if you could just copy Omega mutants' powers, doesn't it make you by default Omega? Like,
I think that it might be his power itself. He is not the best at copying, therefore he is not an Omega mutant, right? Because he can other people are better at copying. However,
okay,
if he copies an Omega, he is technically an Omega of that other power, but not his copying set.
okay,
A co-mega, if you will, with the other person.
Okay. Right now, we haven't actually got a single. We haven't got episode 1 even up yet. That is our first piece of merch. Is going to be Co-Mega Mutants and our faces on it. And when Arakko goes away, we have our new name for our podcast, the Co-Mega Mutants.
I'm down for that.
That is the greatest words I've ever heard out of your mouth.
But very legitimately, it is a confusing designation when it comes to that. That's the best my mind can wrap around it.
I like it. I don't think it's what the X office actually is thinking, but we're making that fan canon right now because it does at least quiet the screaming in my brain. But the other thing my brain is screaming. Okay, so he's Iceman. When he's in his ice form, is unbreakable. Essentially, he can always reform. We've never seen that he could have in his human form a body part ripped off and it regrows for some reason. So when Sync is synced with him, he's human, loses his arm, and goes, good thing I was synced with Bobby because he can regrow his arm.
Yeah.
Is this a new power for Iceman? Is this just Dugan not bothering with making sure he understands the power set? Is this just comics? We're not supposed to think about it, bro.
I think it can be a little bit of all of them.
Okay.
So here's the way I initially read it, right? Before thinking too much about it, in the heat of the issue, before going back for notes, when I was looking at it, I read it as his arm was outstretched, it got cut, and then he trapped it back on and fused it on with ice, kind of like a cast.
Okay.
That was my initial sure, why not?
I'm gonna have to ask my doctor friends if if you got sub-zero temperatures, if you could cauterize it back on.
Reverse cauterization.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Frostbite it back on.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But also I don't know because we are aware of the powers get stronger when you get resurrected.
Yeah.
So I'm just is he able to strengthen their powers to what they would be next just through his syncing?
Because Sync's been, because I was gonna say, I don't remember how many times have we seen Bobby come back. We haven't seen him a bunch, right?
Right.
We've seen Sync revive more. That would be interesting if Sync now can amplify powers through his returning, and he's now not only Comega, but is Omega above like the Omega mutant he's borrowing from. That'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, I don't know. But it also it could just be like I don't feel like looking up the specifics. The ice can do good.
Yeah, it could be it. That is what I worry is happening with this book, which with how meticulously plotted the arcs for both the Gillen and the Ewing books are, it makes me worry this book is starting to fall off. Because
Mhm.
I've been enjoying it as it's been more lighthearted, but I've really enjoyed the stuff it's been doing. So I'm not
Yeah,
throwing up a red flag, but I'm throwing up the yellow caution flag that I'm worried about this book now.
yeah, I can agree to that absolutely. It's just like it's starting to show a couple of signs of me going like I don't know.
But I love the lineup, and there's a lot of potential there. And if it, like, I'm okay with it going lighthearted. I just needed to embrace that fact if it's going to go that way, and not kind of be in the weird middle ground.
Yeah. And we might even see it come into its own post event,
Yeah,
we once
that's
it's
that's
doing
very
its own
true.
thing.
The most tie-in of a tie-in issue we've ever seen. Just kidding. Opens with Wolverine taking out his rage over Kid Omega's seemingly permanent death on the island. Professor X confronts him, shames him, and with Logan announcing he's done believing in the mutant cause until he gets answers, he's apparently going MIA. We then see Craven the Hunter in Siberia stalk and kill first a seal and then a polar bear. The polar bear happens to have Deadpool's head in his stomach. We then cut to a few days earlier, a few weeks earlier, undetermined amount of time earlier, Deadpool on the island bragging about joining X Force. Really bragging about founding X Force. He's the most important X Force man forever to anybody to listen. We see the team meeting to discuss an ominous job that Wolverine would be opposed to, and the team bemoans being down both Kid Omega and Logan. Omega Red shows zero tolerance for Deadpool, so of course they end up paired up. And then we see the rest of the X Force team on a specific rescue mission to save a kidnapped Angel. A group of zealots have him in, I assume, Grand Canyon. I feel bad. I did not double check where they were before doing the podcast, but had them in some deserty looking area, are torturing him, but not killing him, which I feel like is kind of cool that the humans have realized is the ultimate with the X-Men or the mutants currently. They cut off a wing, and so Black Tom, Domino come in and save the day. Meanwhile, Siberia, we see Deadpool tease Omega some more on their rescue mission. So he traps him with his own swords, and the bear comes along and eats him. Well, Omega like deals with the hostage situation. The issue ends with Craven in the Siberian pub where he overhears someone refer to the mutants as the apex predator, which piques his interest. So a whole lot of Judgment Day here, but here's my thought, because we have joked a few times this in the last 2 days about how little this issue had to do with Judgment Day at all. Like, I guess the people who had um, Angel were like only kidnapping him because of the events of Judgment Day, but other than that, this has had absolutely nothing to do with Judgment Day. But
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously humans have never hated mutants before Judgment Day. That's the
yeah,
obvious tie-in.
of course, I'm hoping that like as a 3-issue tie-in, because it's got the Judgment Day logo slapped on there for all 3 issues of this arc, that maybe it's gonna tie in more. Although neither the Siberia stuff nor Craven seem to have anything to do with Judgment Day, so I'm not really sure how it will. But what were your overall thoughts? Yay, nay, what were you feeling?
It didn't do much of anything for me. I not that it was a bad issue, but it didn't make me feel much of anything
Yeah.
aside from maybe I think the most that I felt, and this might be a hot take, was like, am I getting too old to enjoy Deadpool? Because I'm not really enjoying Deadpool anymore.
Okay, so you didn't read the last arc where like he earned his place on the team, or did you? Remind me. Did you read the
Uh,
last arc of X Force?
I did, yeah.
Okay. I felt like that was way too much Deadpool.
Hmm.
Like I don't mind Percy's characterization of Deadpool. I dislike his Wolverine a whole lot more than I dislike his Deadpool. But like they completely Deadpooled up the last like 3 or 4 issues where or was that Wolverine? Whichever series it was that was all Deadpooled
Yeah.
up, like all the like data pages and stuff had Deadpool scribbles over them. It was way too much Deadpool. I was okay with the Deadpool of this issue. Like there was a little bit enough of them. Some of the jokes definitely didn't land. Like him just yelling Wilhelm scream. Like
Yeah.
that has to be the most beaten like a dead horse meta joke ever.
Yeah.
I will say, maybe controversial take. I'm sure you're about to disagree with me. I preferred this issue to the X Men issue. Like for someone that I don't like Benjamin Percy as a writer, I like Jerry Dugan as a writer. This issue did a little more for me. I think mostly the Craven scenes. Um, I haven't actually liked the like what is he clone son, whatever we want to call the current Craven. Like I really feel like that's a cop out for as an excuse to like keep the Craven Last Stand fans super happy and still be able to use Craven now. Is the
Hmm.
fact that this isn't the original Craven. This is like whatever a clone slash son slash whatever he is. Uh, but I thought the characterization of Craven was pretty cool. Um, I don't really know how I feel about him as an X-Men villain. I think it's a cool, just like maybe sometime he has fought the X-Men in the past. This is the first I know of him ever serving as a mutant villain, and I think it's gonna be really fun to watch that play out. Uh, but the Omega Red and Deadpool dynamic feels like it's just a rehash of the Wolverine and Deadpool dynamic with a slightly angry guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of it. Like, I think the reason why this issue did so little for me is because there was so little new ground that it
Yeah,
covered.
that's
Because,
fair.
like you said, like the Omega Red and Deadpool is just angrier Wolverine and Deadpool.
Yep.
Craven hearing that the mutants are apex predators and therefore he wants to hunt them. Like, okay, fine, that's like everything Craven has ever done.
Yeah, that's
You
just
know,
like just blanket like Craven's motif. It's more. I'm more curious. Like, where has he not picked up a newspaper?
well, that's kind of part of it, right? Like, where has this dude been that
Like I guess he's
now,
been out stalking a seal, but it's not
like
like Krakoa's been around for a while. Like, I don't think they're saying they're the apex predator because they solved like death. They're the apex predator because they have this island with all their other stuff going on.
they they terraformed Mars. They
Yeah,
took it
terraforming
over.
Mars doesn't make him an apex predator, but
They took over a planet, renamed it, and then one of them was like, by the way, I'm the queen of the entire solar system. And that doesn't make him go, oh, yeah. No,
maybe I
it's
should hunt
just
these
some
guys.
dude in a bar.
That's fair. That's fair. You're turning me on the issue a little. Okay, are we ready for Rod's nitpick corner? Because I
Yeah,
got stuff with this issue too.
let's do it.
All right. So, the entire Sabretooth mini was all about how the laws of Krakoa are applied with like an iron fist. So why does respect this sacred land not apply to Logan like in the slightest? He's out there just mutilating trees, and Professor X doesn't even say like, dude, the laws.
I honestly, that's not even nitpick because it was one of the first
Shouldn't
things
that be
I
pit
thought.
worthy? Like that
Like,
should be straight up pit worthy, right?
yeah, like honestly, when I saw that happen, I was like, oh, are they setting up like the continuation of Sabretooth to be like a Sabretooth and Wolverine are both like having to be together because of the pit?
Yeah.
No. Would have been way more interesting that way, but no.
Like I get like Wolverine is so important to the Judgment Day, whatever's going on, which is also like he's just out there just pouting and Judgment Day's happening all around them. But for Professor X not to even mention it, like it's one thing for him to not say like, all right, we have to call the Quiet Council. I'm sentencing you immediately. I can live with that. But the fact he doesn't even reference it just kind of blew my mind.
Like it could have even been like the first words out of his mouth was respect the land, Logan.
Yep,
You know,
it could have just been a one sentence muttering. Yep, I agree. Okay, nitpick number two. uh, Angel just lets people chop off a wing, and we don't see Archangel at all.
nothing.
Did I
Nothing.
miss something? Did
Uh, I just yeah. What did I miss? When's the last time we saw Angel? Was
I
it
don't know,
X
but
Core?
in oh yeah, I think probably last time we saw Angel in action, but it's most offensive in a book called X Force when the best X Force run is Uncanny X Force, which was like 50% Archangel stuff.
Yeah.
It just offends me.
I'm trying to remember like what's the last thing? Why would this be this way? Did something happen in X Corp that I don't remember that I forgot? Did
I
something
mean,
happen in
X
between?
Corp's X Corp, he was kind of a public face of the mutants, so like I assume like he's out doing business dealings for the mutants still. So like I could see why he's one of the easier to get like their hands on. Like a mob would be like, "Oh, he's meeting the CEO today. We'll be waiting out front to get him."
Yeah.
I just don't understand like once they had him, why they're able to just continuously torture him without killing him without.
Yeah.
Since we're talking, I did want to say I did like the like one of the main guys like holding him like demanding was he wanted them to revive Elvis, so he was like a full Elvis impersonator. And so when Black Tom comes through the portal, like he strikes an Elvis pose, and you see the like angry torture guy yell like, "Oh my god, my wish came true!" And then you see it's Black Tom, which
Yeah.
that scene was I liked.
Not only that, but he's like, sorry, it was always a bit more of a U2 fan.
I didn't remember the phrasing, but yes, love that line absolutely. No, the domino rescue was like that whole sequence was done just fine, but it really did raise my higher. And I did have nitpick number 3. Okay, so when Cerebrax like took over Cerebro, had the island under control, it wiped Kid Omega, and that's why supposedly we can't revive him. Waiting room, like we've
Yeah.
had the waiting room since at the end of Trial of Magneto. We've seen it referenced a few times, but it seems like they still can't like decide whether it's a big deal or not. Shouldn't there be a Kid Omega backup in the waiting room? Is it only the ones who didn't have a Cerebro backup? And if so, why? And when are we going to get that like laid out explicitly?
Yeah,
I don't
that's a
get it.
good point. I didn't think about that.
It's the same issue I had with Magneto deleting his backup of like, well, what's it matter? Like,
Yeah.
we now have 2 backup systems, but I assume we're going to get that dealt with at some point. Like they're going to have to reference it because they keep talking about like what would happen if we lost the 5, or what would happen if like Cerebro does get taken. Like there's all of these like potential uh-ohs when we seems we have 2 or 3 avenues of resurrection now. So I want explicit answers at some point. That's not my biggest nitpick though. I will still say my biggest nitpick, the one that will Professor X not evenly applying the law. Like that just because when we see him in law situations, he has been all about like applying it. Like he's supposed to be a hard ass. And I get maybe it's supposed to be him playing favorites, which I could see like is another reason like Nightcrawler's mad at him, all that stuff. Like I get that. Just
I
to not
mean,
even
yeah.
reference it.
The favoritism could be like playing into the larger story of it all, but the the not referencing it thing is what drives me crazy because I feel like with Charles, he would definitely mention it to Logan,
Yeah.
even as a "you owe me" because I'm not gonna throw you into the
Yep.
pit.
Yep. Even if it was the most condescending, like I got your back kind of comment, he would have said something. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mutants. I know you're not reading this, and it's not really tied to anything going on right now, so it does set up Dark Web though. So I'll just say the arc ended pretty strongly. Like I felt like overall I haven't been super into New Mutants. I almost dropped it like before this arc started. I'm glad I stuck with it because the whole visit to Limbo like saga slapped. It does see Ileana sever ties completely with Limbo. It looks like it's also gonna be where we finally get some Colossus payoff, which I feel like we haven't seen referenced since Hickman. So yay. I was really worried that was just going to be dropped completely and he's on the council. And like, when are we going to deal with the fact that Piotr is not Piotr? And I'm not pronouncing his name right, but why is it Colossus, right? Have you seen the pictures of the new look she adopts in this?
I have not.
It looks
I
sick. I'll Discord it to you after we're done here, but
okay.
it looks awesome. Uh, so it's a completely fresh arc starting with the next issue. Can I convince you to jump on this one?
I think you can. I think I
Okay.
can get on for the next one. Yeah.
All right. So that's everything that came out this week, except for another one that we're going to talk about possibly reading. We joked about like how weird of a title it was last week, but Book of XCII or Book of 92. I think we need to binge before the last issue comes out next month because it is literally what if the 92 TV show went through the Age of Krakoa. So you've got House of X, you've got X of Swords, and you've got the first Hellfire Gala, all done as if it was in the 90s cartoon. I read just the first issue and I'm kind of hooked. So
I'll check it out. I think I misunderstood like what the concept of it was
me
at
too.
first, and that's why I was like, "This looks dumb. Why would they be there?" You know, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
absolutely.
And I guess that's on me for not reading the descriptions. But I'm one that like I don't like to always read the descriptions because I like to have an element of surprise sometimes.
We're gonna jump into some solicitation talk next, and like I'm with you. There are stuff in solicitations I try to skip because yeah, it just gives stuff away.
Yeah, so I think that's why I had like the wrong idea of what it was. But with that description, I'm down to check it out because like, yeah, why not?
Well, and it's a small commitment because it is just a 5 issue mini, so I feel like we could
That's
totally
easy.
fit it in by a month from now, and it'll be a lot of fun.
I could whip that out in a day if I really wanted to. So
Absolutely. All right, November Solicitations came out this week. I'm not going to go through all of them because like I skip any of the ongoings that I know I'm reading. I don't bother reading the solicitation form because I don't want to be spoiled. But we have two new number ones coming in, one of which I'm really excited about and ties into a question you had earlier. Sabretooth and the Exiles #1. Sabretooth takes his destiny into his own clawed hands. The powers that be condemned Sabretooth to the pit for breaking the rules of Krakoa, but now he's free and ready to show the world you can't keep Victor Creed down. Even as the exiles from Krakoa speed along in hot pursuit, a new chapter in the fan favorite saga begins in brutal fashion, but when Dr. Barrington gets her hooks in Creed, he'll be lucky to survive the first issue. Victor Laval and Leonard Kirk return for this unforgettable installment in the chronicles of one of Marveldom's most vicious mutants. I loved the Sabretooth mini.
me too. I loved it so much.
Getting to see what mutant hell was like a really cool concept. And like I know they're out, they've escaped hell now, but I will follow this team anywhere. And it is another mini. It's another 5 issues. So I'm here for it.
I'll definitely. I've always like. I feel like saying that I like Sabretooth isn't exactly the right way to say it because of like who he is as a person. But I've always liked Sabretooth. Like I've
Absolutely.
always found him an interesting character to read, watch, whatever. So I'm excited for this. My biggest complaint right now is like missing the opportunity to name it like X Isles.
That's fair. I did not look at the covers. They might be doing the little E big X. I don't know for sure. The other number one, Extreme X-Men #1 is Chris Claremont coming back, finishing a run he started. He reunites with artistic dynamo Salvador LaRocca for an all-new story set just after the groundbreaking original run of Extreme X-Men, a powerful psychic attack on Kitty Pryde from her old energy, or from her old enemy, Ogun, brings the Extreme team back together for a high-stakes mission. But what secret is Ogun hiding? And will even the combined might of Bishop, Sage, Gambit, Rogue, Rachel Summers, Storm, and Wolverine be enough to stop his insidious plan? I am going to be completely honest. You're not going to catch me reading anything Chris Claremont writes in 2022. So we're
Yeah.
not. If you read it, I'll be happy to like chat about it a little. But I'm not adding this one to my full list.
I'm not sure, like why should I?
Okay, fair, fair. I am forcing you to read a lot, so I was gonna give the opportunity for you to vouch for it if you wanted to, but I am very happy to hear that we will not be talking Extreme X-Men.
No, I'm fine with skipping a Chris Claremont.
I'm in general okay with us keeping our conversation to mostly stuff happening like now, like the current continuity X-Men, because that's where I'm having a ton of fun. So
Yeah, like I don't need not that any of it's bad, but I don't need to be doing the what ifs on different eras and like fitting this little segment of like patch into like this 5 months in whatever.
Some of that stuff will definitely lure me in, but it'll have to be stuff I either have nostalgia for or done by creators I really love.
And that's what it is. If there's something that sells me on it, then I'll read it, but not just because it's mutants.
Yeah. So did you have a chance to look through the solicitations at all?
I didn't really look through
Okay.
anything else.
No worries. I was just to see if anything surprised you. I will say, big surprise for me. We still have no Knights of X follow up. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't like end on a true cliffhanger, but that was a lot of important cast members that they're doing nothing with, and like no one seems to care. Gambit's dead. Like I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, well, and that was like when I was first looking at the Extreme X-Men stuff and it was mentioning like Gambit, I was like, wait, did something? Oh no, it's just not in continuity. That's
Yeah.
all. Because I was confused. I was like, did I miss something where Gambit's back?
And that leaves us just with next week.
Next week.
Judgment Day number 3. I'm really excited. We're getting double shift this month. I'm loving the pacing so far. That's the only Judgment Day related issue, which it does seem like maybe that's why we're getting these stacked weeks of like 4 tie-ins, because they want the actual issues to stand alone more or less. We are getting Marauders 5, which I'm getting more into, and then Wolverine Patch, which I have dropped and feel no shame over.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Patch was really just not really doing it
No.
for me personally.
Well, and like I don't understand I don't understand the nostalgia for Patch, like the Patch era, but whatever. If
Like,
people are into it, I'm glad it exists.
if you love Patch, I am not here to yuck your yums or tell you that you are wrong.
May I make a argument though?
Yes.
To me, the Marvel audience as a whole would buy far more issues of either a Laura Kinney ongoing or a Wolverines ongoing that's just like a family book about like the 4, so Gabby, Logan, Dawkin, and Gabby book than they will a mini series about Logan from the past. I could be wrong. I think that would sell significantly more copies, and I don't really know how like comic book like pay within the big 2 works, but it seems like it wouldn't cost more. Like, it seems like
Right.
they could easily fund it the same way.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the inside baseball of the industry to argue the pay. I do think it's it's less about how many they're selling. I think it's about which audience they're courting.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Patch audience is
Is
well,
someone different than the Krakoan audience? Okay.
yes. Yeah.
All right. Maybe
And a
maybe
more
maybe Marvel knows more than I know, but
I I I I I don't say that they're courting a different audience in a good way. I'll
I want a Laura Kinney focus book,
I
especially now that they booted her from the team.
yeah, I would love a Laura Kinney focus book. I would love a Wolverines book. I mean, anything for more of my boy Daken.
Well, and that was the best part of Lives and Deads of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like that was the only part of that event that I liked, was when we got to see them all working together.
Yeah, like I
And
love
I
like
thought that's what they were hinting at. I thought we were
yeah,
going to get the team up book.
the kids coming together for dad, like that was cool. I liked that. But say it ain't so. Like part of why I like X Factor so much, bringing it back to the top of the episode, part of why I like X Factor so much was Daken. Like he was a fun fit into that group.
Yeah. I'm liking him in Marauders. I don't like the way he's drawn in Marauders. There's
Yeah,
something about that art style that in general I'm digging, but it does not fit Dawkins. And I know I'm
I
pronouncing it different than you, I'm sorry.
and that's okay. Here's the thing about reading, I don't know which one's the right one.
It doesn't matter. We know who we're talking about, and so should our audience.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with you. Like I'm not. It's not bad by any means, but I'm not huge on the Marauders art style in general.
Yeah.
It's not usually
It's
what
a
I
big
go for.
it's a big change from the first volume of Marauders, which I really enjoyed. So like there's a little bit of me disliking it just because it's different.
Yeah.
Don't
I'm
change it on me.
I'm resistant to change. It's scary and bad.
All right. Before we log off, like maybe an hour ago, they put up the preview pages for Judgment Day 3. It's only like 3 pages. Do we want to talk about it, or do we want to go in blind next week?
Ooh, that's a good.
Because
That's a good.
I'll be honest, I read them right away, and it doesn't reveal a ton, but
I
do we
mean,
want to talk about it?
I'll check them out. I'll check them out.
All
Let
right.
me see here.
We find out who's the first to be judged. And I was a little surprised. I figured it was all happening at the 24-hour mark, but that's apparently not the way it works. To talk about the preview, let's talk preview.
Let's talk preview.
Apparently, Judgment will be issued on a one-to-one basis and starting immediately with Captain America, who is found wanting.
So I'm having like a little bit of an existential crisis over this because I love Captain America.
Yeah.
Love Captain America.
But Celestial's not really wrong in anything he says.
No, well, that's the thing. I love Captain America. Not the biggest fan of America itself right now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the thing that I love about Cap is that it's always him saying, like, I represent the people that I'm protecting.
The
I
idea.
represent the idea. I represent what this grand experiment was supposed to be.
What it should be.
Yeah, it's why I can see like the romantic nature behind things like Hamilton. It's like, yes, our country has become very problematic and everything, but there's an idea at its core that like I truly wish that I could like grasp to.
Okay.
And the fact that Steve still can, I think that's cool, and he's supposed to represent that idea. And so whenever someone's like, "Oh, Captain America's bad because he represents America," I'm like, "No, but he represents like what we could be, like what we're supposed to be aiming to be." So finding Steve Rogers wanting is like, no.
Well, even Tony, I love like in the last 2 panels of the preview, Tony immediately, if it judges Cap by that standard, what chance do the rest of us have?
Yeah.
And Kieran Gillen gets. We talked about this. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago? Whenever we talked to Judgment Day 2, Kieran Gillen needs to write a Steve Rogers ongoing. We're not going to play its game, not unless there's no other option. You find a way out of this. I'll try to keep the world calm. Like, he's not even phased. He has a god thumbs down him, and he's still immediately. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that was last week because I was saying like, I think Kieran Gillen like would have a advantage trying Captain America because not blinded by the patriotism of it. And like it's evident here too. You know, like I'm excited in a way that scares me.
It makes the next 6 days that much harder.
Yeah, no.
Like I almost wish I hadn't seen the preview.
Yeah, great preview. I'm excited for it. I get why they're going that route, but it does hurt me a little bit.
All right, and before we sign off, one last thing. Open the second link I sent you.
Yes, right now. Okay, yeah, that's a great variant right there.
It is the Extreme X-Men #1 Cat variant, which will be in the background eventually whenever it comes out, and I get my cover wall. I am ordering that issue.
Oh, I want it so bad. I really love the Wolverine cat. That's
oh, yeah. The expression, the facial expression on that one is perfect.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that.
All right. So talk to everybody next week.
Everybody next week.